In a quiet, sun-drenched village in Burkina Faso, nestled between dusty roads and sprawling fields, lived a young man named Ibrahim Traoré. From the outside, his life seemed ordinary. Like many others in his community, he grew up in a modest home with little access to modern luxuries. But inside, Ibrahim carried extraordinary dreams. He dreamed of a world where every child could go to school, where families didn't have to struggle daily just to put food on the table, and where people believed they had the power to shape their own destinies. While these aspirations might sound noble, they were often met with laughter from those around him. Ibrahim's friends and neighbors couldn't understand why he spent so much time talking about big ideas when survival itself was hard enough. "What can you do?" they would tease. "You're just one person. How will you change anything?" Even within his family, there were whispers of doubt. His uncle once said, "Dreams don't fill stomachs, Ibrahim. Focus on what's real." These words hurt, but instead of letting them break him, Ibrahim used them as fuel. Deep down, he knew that his vision wasn't foolish. It was necessary. And though no one else saw it yet, he was determined to prove that even someone from a small village could make a difference. Despite the ridicule, Ibrahim refused to give up. Every morning, he woke before sunrise, working odd jobs to support his family while secretly saving whatever money he could. Some days he worked in the fields under the scorching sun. Other times he helped repair bicycles or sold snacks at the local market. But whenever he had a free moment, he poured his energy into helping others. He started organizing small gatherings in the village, teaching children basic math and reading skills using old textbooks he borrowed from teachers. At night, he stayed up late planning ways to improve his community, scribbling notes by candlelight. Word of Ibrahim's efforts began to spread, but not always in a positive way. Many villagers dismissed his initiatives as impractical. "Who does he think he is?" some muttered. "Does he really believe he's going to fix everything?" Others laughed openly, calling him names like the dreamer or the politician without a country. It was painful to hear, especially since Ibrahim genuinely wanted to help. Still, he pressed on, believing that actions spoke louder than words. Over time, a few curious children and adults started showing up for his lessons and workshops. Though the numbers were small, Ibrahim saw hope in their eyes, and that kept him going. One day, something unexpected happened that changed everything. Ibrahim received a letter inviting him to attend a global leadership summit in New York City. The invitation came as part of a scholarship program aimed at recognizing young changemakers from underserved communities. At first, he thought it was a mistake. "Me? Go to America?" he asked aloud, staring at the envelope in disbelief. But after confirming its authenticity, excitement bubbled inside him. This was his chance to share his story with the world and learn from others who shared his passion for making a difference. Preparing for the trip was no easy task. With limited resources, Ibrahim relied on donations from well-wishers in his village to fund his journey. Friends who had once mocked him now pitched in, perhaps feeling guilty or maybe inspired by his determination. Either way, Ibrahim didn't dwell on their past skepticism. He focused on the opportunity ahead. As he boarded the plane for the first time in his life, he felt a mix of nerves and exhilaration. Little did he know, this trip would become a defining chapter in his story. When Ibrahim arrived in New York, he was overwhelmed by the towering skyscrapers, bustling streets, and sheer diversity of people. The summit brought together leaders, activists, and innovators from all corners of the globe, each sharing unique perspectives on tackling challenges in their communities. For the first time, Ibrahim realized he wasn't alone in his struggles. There were others like him, young, driven individuals fighting against the odds to create change. Listening to their stories reignited his sense of purpose. On the second day of the event, a keynote speaker took the stage. Vin Diesel, the famous actor known for his roles in blockbuster movies. Known for his tough guy persona on screen, Vin surprised everyone with a deeply personal speech about resilience and self-belief. He spoke passionately about how underdogs often possess the courage to challenge the status quo and inspire greatness in others. As he concluded his talk, Vin invited attendees to join him for networking sessions. That's when fate intervened. While mingling with participants during a coffee break, Vin noticed Ibrahim standing quietly in a corner observing the crowd. Intrigued by his calm demeanor, Vin approached him and struck up a conversation. They talked for nearly an hour, discussing everything from Ibrahim's work in Burkina Faso to Vin's own experiences of overcoming adversity early in his career. By the end of their chat, Vin was visibly impressed. "You remind me of myself. When I was starting out," Vin told Ibrahim. "Never stop believing in what you're doing." The next evening, during another session, Vin returned to the stage to deliver closing remarks. As he addressed the audience, he paused dramatically and pointed toward Ibrahim, who was seated among the participants. "Let me tell you about this man right here," Vin announced, his voice echoing through the auditorium. "His name is Ibrahim Traoré, and let me assure you, he's not just another face in the crowd. This guy, he's the president!" The room erupted in gasps and murmurs as all eyes turned to Ibrahim, who sat frozen, unsure if he had heard correctly. Vin went on to explain how Ibrahim's dedication to education and community empowerment embodied true leadership. "You may laugh now," Vin continued, addressing any skeptics in the audience, "but history will prove you wrong. Leaders like Ibrahim don't wait for permission. They create opportunities where none exist." The moment became electric, immortalized in videos and photos that quickly circulated online. Overnight, Ibrahim went from being a nameless figure in a remote village to a symbol of hope and perseverance on a global scale. Back home in Burkina Faso, news of Vin Diesel's endorsement reached Ibrahim's village via social media and international news outlets. People who had once ridiculed him were now watching interviews and reading articles about his work. Some felt ashamed of their previous behavior, while others marveled at how far he had come. "We didn't believe in him," admitted one neighbor, "but look at him now. He made us proud." Slowly but surely, attitudes began to shift. What had once been dismissed as unrealistic ambition was now celebrated as remarkable achievement. With newfound recognition came opportunities. International organizations reached out, offering funding and partnerships to expand Ibrahim's initiatives. Schools were built, literacy programs flourished, and young minds thrived under his guidance. Yet, success also brought challenges. Critics emerged, accusing him of riding on Vin's fame or exaggerating his impact. Others questioned whether he truly deserved the attention he was receiving. But Ibrahim faced these doubts head-on, refusing to let negativity derail his progress. Instead, he channeled the doubters' energy into fuel for innovation, launching campaigns to empower others to believe in themselves regardless of external validation. Though his journey was far from over, Ibrahim knew he had already achieved something extraordinary. He had proven that dreams, no matter how audacious, were worth pursuing. And sometimes, all it took was one person to stand up and say, "He's the president," to spark a revolution of belief. The moment Vin Diesel declared Ibrahim Traoré the president on stage at the Global Leadership Summit became a turning point not just for Ibrahim, but for everyone who had ever doubted him. As the crowd erupted in applause, Ibrahim felt a mix of emotions: shock, pride, and even a little fear. He had always believed in his mission, but he never imagined it would gain such sudden, widespread attention. The spotlight was both exhilarating and overwhelming. For the first time in his life, people weren't laughing at him, they were listening. After the event, Ibrahim found himself surrounded by strangers eager to learn more about his work. Journalists bombarded him with questions. How does it feel to be called the president? What's your plan now that you're in the global spotlight? Do you think you'll run for office someday? While flattered, Ibrahim struggled to process everything happening around him. He wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially not on this scale. But one thing was clear: the world was finally paying attention to the issues he had been fighting for years. Vin Diesel stayed by Ibrahim's side during those chaotic days, offering guidance and encouragement. "This is your moment," Vin told him over dinner one evening. "Use it wisely. People are watching and they're ready to follow someone who inspires them." Those words stuck with Ibrahim, He realized that this newfound fame wasn't just about him. It was an opportunity to amplify the voices of others like him, people working tirelessly to improve their communities without recognition or support. From that day forward, Ibrahim vowed to use his platform to uplift others rather than focus solely on himself. As news of Vin's endorsement spread, international organizations began reaching out to collaborate with Ibrahim. NGOs offered funding to expand his literacy programs, while tech companies donated laptops and tablets to schools in Burkina Faso. Even celebrities joined the cause, using their influence to raise awareness about education inequality in Africa. It seemed like every door that had once been closed to Ibrahim was now wide open. Yet, despite the influx of resources and opportunities, he remained grounded. He knew that success meant nothing if it didn't translate into tangible change for the people who needed it most. Returning to Burkina Faso after the summit, Ibrahim was greeted like a hero. Villagers lined the streets, cheering and clapping, as he stepped off the bus. Children ran up to him asking if he really met Vin Diesel. Elders patted him on the back, expressing pride in what he had achieved. For Ibrahim, this homecoming was bittersweet. On one hand, he was thrilled to see his community rally behind him. On the other hand, he couldn't help but notice the irony. These same people who celebrated him today were the ones who had laughed at him yesterday. Still, he chose not to dwell on past grievances. Instead, he focused on the future. With the support of international partners, Ibrahim launched several ambitious projects aimed at transforming his village. New schools were constructed, equipped with modern facilities and trained teachers. Solar panels were installed to provide electricity to homes that had never known light after sunset. Clean water systems were built, ensuring families no longer had to walk miles to fetch drinking water. Every project was designed with sustainability in mind, empowering locals to take ownership of their development. Ibrahim made sure that everyone involved, from builders to teachers, came from within the community, creating jobs and fostering a sense of pride. But progress wasn't without its challenges. Critics emerged, questioning whether Ibrahim's initiatives were sustainable or merely temporary fixes funded by foreign aid. Some accused him of grandstanding, claiming he cared more about publicity than real impact. Others argued that his sudden rise to fame overshadowed the efforts of grassroots activists who had been working quietly for decades. These criticisms stung, but Ibrahim refused to let them discourage him. Instead, he invited skeptics to visit his projects and see the results firsthand. Slowly but surely, even the harshest critics softened their stance when they witnessed the positive changes taking place. One of the biggest hurdles Ibrahim faced was managing expectations. With so many people looking to him for solutions, the pressure to deliver was immense. There were days when he felt overwhelmed, wondering if he was truly capable of living up to the title Vin Diesel had bestowed upon him. During these moments of doubt, he reminded himself of why he started this journey in the first place, not for fame or recognition, but because he genuinely wanted to make a difference. That realization gave him strength to push through the toughest times. To keep himself grounded, Ibrahim often revisited the values instilled in him by his parents. They had taught him the importance of humility, hard work, and perseverance. Whenever he felt tempted to bask in his accomplishments, he thought about the sacrifices his family had made to give him opportunities. He remembered how his mother sold handmade crafts to send him to school, and how his father worked long hours in the fields to put food on the table. Their sacrifices kept him humble, reminding him that true success was measured not by accolades but by the lives he touched. Amidst all the changes, Ibrahim also noticed something beautiful happening within his community. People who had once ridiculed him were now inspired to pursue their own dreams. A young woman named Mariam, who had dropped out of school due to financial difficulties, approached Ibrahim seeking advice. She wanted to start a tailoring business but lacked the confidence to begin. Encouraged by Ibrahim's story, she decided to take the leap. Within months, her business flourished, providing income for her family and inspiring other women to follow suit. Stories like Mariam's reinforced Ibrahim's belief that change was contagious. If one person succeeded, it could inspire countless others to do the same. As word of Ibrahim's achievements continued to spread, invitations poured in from around the world. Universities invited him to speak at graduation ceremonies, sharing his journey with students eager to make a difference. Corporations sought his input on corporate social responsibility initiatives, hoping to align their goals with his vision. Even governments reached out, asking for advice on implementing grassroots development programs. Each invitation presented an opportunity to share his message of resilience and hope, but Ibrahim carefully selected which events to attend. He didn't want to lose sight of his roots or neglect the people who had supported him from the beginning. Despite his growing international profile, Ibrahim remained committed to staying connected to his village. He frequently returned home, walking the same dusty roads he had grown up on and visiting the schools he helped build. Sitting under the shade of a baobab tree, he would listen to elders share stories of their struggles and aspirations. These conversations reminded him of the importance of staying humble and remembering where he came from. No matter how far he traveled or how much recognition he received, his heart belonged to Burkina Faso. By the end of the year, Ibrahim's story had become a beacon of inspiration worldwide. Social media buzzed with hashtags like "Believe Anyway" and "Yours from Villages to Victory," celebrating ordinary people achieving extraordinary things. Memes featuring Vin Diesel's iconic line, "He's the president," went viral, sparking laughter and admiration alike. Yet amidst all the noise, Ibrahim remained focused on the bigger picture. Fame was fleeting, but the impact of his work would endure long after the headlines faded. Looking back on the whirlwind of events that followed Vin Diesel's endorsement, Ibrahim couldn't help but smile. What had started as a simple dream, to educate children and empower his community, had snowballed into a movement that transcended borders. He had proven that even in the face of ridicule and adversity, persistence could pave the way for success. And though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear. Ibrahim Traoré was no longer just a name. He was a symbol of resilience, a reminder that greatness often emerges from the most unlikely places. With his newfound recognition and resources, Ibrahim Traoré set out to expand his mission beyond the borders of his village. The projects he had started in Burkina Faso were thriving, but he knew that true change required a broader approach. Inspired by Vin Diesel's words about creating opportunities where none existed, Ibrahim began dreaming bigger. He envisioned a world where every community, no matter how small or marginalized, could access tools and support to improve their lives. To turn this vision into reality, he founded an organization called Rise Together, dedicated to empowering grassroots changemakers across Africa. The launch of Rise Together marked a new chapter in Ibrahim's journey. The organization focused on three key areas: education, entrepreneurship, and environmental sustainability. Education remained closest to Ibrahim's heart, as it had been the foundation of his own transformation. Through Rise Together, he partnered with local leaders to build schools, train teachers, and provide scholarships for children who couldn't afford tuition. Entrepreneurship programs were designed to equip young adults with skills like farming, tailoring, and technology, enabling them to start businesses and contribute to their economies. Environmental initiatives aim to combat deforestation and promote renewable energy, ensuring that future generations would inherit a healthier planet. What made Rise Together unique was its emphasis on collaboration. Ibrahim understood that lasting change couldn't come from a single person or group. It required collective effort. So, he created platforms where individuals from different backgrounds could share ideas, resources, and expertise. One such platform was the Community Champions Network, which connected activists, educators, and innovators from across the continent. Members of the network exchanged best practices, celebrated successes, and supported each other through challenges. It became a space where dreams took root and grew into tangible solutions. As Rise Together gained momentum, Ibrahim traveled extensively, visiting communities in need and learning firsthand about their struggles. During one trip to a remote village in Mali, he met a woman named Amina, who ran a small cooperative producing handmade goods. Despite her talent and hard work, Amina struggled to reach wider markets due to lack of transportation and internet access. Moved by her story, Ibrahim worked with local authorities and international partners to secure funding for a road project and install solar-powered Wi-Fi towers in the area. Within months, Amina's products were being sold online, bringing much-needed income to her family and boosting the local economy. Stories like Amina's fueled Ibrahim's determination to keep pushing boundaries. However, expanding his efforts came with its own set of challenges. Funding was a constant concern, as many donors preferred short-term projects over long-term investments. Bureaucratic red tape often delayed progress, leaving communities waiting longer than expected for promised aid. And then there were skeptics, people who doubted whether someone from a small village could lead such ambitious initiatives. Some accused him of being overly idealistic, while others questioned whether his methods were scalable. Despite these obstacles, Ibrahim refused to give up. Instead, he adapted his strategies, finding creative ways to overcome hurdles. For instance, when traditional fundraising fell short, he turned to crowdfunding campaigns, leveraging social media to rally support from ordinary citizens around the world. When governments proved slow to act, he collaborated with private companies willing to invest in sustainable development. His ability to think outside the box earned him respect not only among grassroots activists, but also within global policy circles. One of the most transformative moments during this phase of Ibrahim's journey occurred at a conference in Nairobi, Kenya. There he delivered a keynote speech titled "From Laughter to Leadership." In his talk, he recounted the ridicule he had faced as a young man and explained how those experiences shaped his resilience. "They laughed because they didn't understand," he said, his voice steady yet filled due to emotion. "But laughter fades and action endures. If you believe in something deeply enough, even the harshest critics will eventually have to acknowledge your truth." His speech resonated deeply with the audience, earning a standing ovation. Afterward, dozens of attendees approached him, sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity. Among them was a young man named Kwame from Ghana, who had dropped out of school to care for his siblings after their parents passed away. Inspired by Ibrahim's perseverance, Kwame decided to return to education and pursue a career in engineering. Meeting people like Kwame reminded Ibrahim why he had chosen this path: to inspire others to rise above their circumstances and chase their dreams. Back home in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim continued to nurture the projects he had started earlier. Schools that were once dilapidated now buzzed with activity, thanks to improved infrastructure and motivated teachers. Solar panels installed in villages brought light to homes, allowing children to study at night and families to charge phones for communication. Clean water systems reduced illnesses caused by contaminated sources, improving overall health and productivity. These changes might have seemed small on a global scale, but to the people benefiting from them, they represented monumental shifts in quality of life. Yet Ibrahim never lost sight of the bigger picture. He believed that true leadership wasn't just about solving immediate problems, it was about equipping others to become leaders themselves. With this philosophy in mind, he launched a mentorship program under Rise Together, pairing experienced professionals with aspiring changemakers. Mentors provided guidance on everything from project management to public speaking, helping mentees build confidence and competence. Participants emerged from the program ready to tackle challenges in their own communities, creating a ripple effect of empowerment. To ensure accountability and transparency, Ibrahim implemented rigorous monitoring systems for all Rise Together initiatives. Regular reports tracked progress, identified gaps, and highlighted success stories. This data-driven approach not only helped refine strategies, but also built trust with donors and stakeholders. When critics questioned the sustainability of his projects, Ibrahim invited them to review the evidence, a move that silenced many skeptics and strengthened his credibility. As years passed, Ibrahim's influence extended far beyond Burkina Faso. He became a sought-after speaker at prestigious institutions like Harvard University and the United Nations, where he advocated for policies supporting grassroots development. His talks often began with humor, recounting how people used to laugh at his aspirations. They thought I was crazy, he'd joke. And maybe I was, but craziness has its perks. Audiences roared with laughter before falling silent as he transitioned into heartfelt reflections on the importance of perseverance and faith in oneself. Despite his growing fame, Ibrahim remained committed to staying grounded. He frequently returned to his village, reconnecting with the people and places that had shaped him. Sitting under the same baobab tree where he had spent countless afternoons as a child, he reflected on how far he had come. Fame hadn't changed him. It had simply amplified his ability to make a difference. He knew that real success wasn't measured by titles or accolades, but by the lives he touched along the way. By the time Rise Together celebrated its 5th anniversary, the D organization had impacted millions of lives across Africa. Schools had been built, businesses had flourished, and ecosystems had been restored, all thanks to the relentless efforts of Ibrahim and his team. Yet for Ibrahim, the journey was far from over. He saw each milestone as a stepping stone toward an even greater goal, a world where everyone, regardless of background, had the opportunity to thrive. Looking back on the roller coaster ride of the past few years, Ibrahim felt immense gratitude, not just for the achievements but for the lessons learned along the way. He had proven that resilience could silence doubters, that collaboration could spark innovation, and that belief in oneself could ignite revolutions. Most importantly, he had shown that greatness wasn't reserved for the privileged few. It belonged to anyone brave enough to dream and determined enough to act. And so, the boy who was once laughed at grew into a man who inspired millions, proving that dreams, no matter how audacious, are worth pursuing. All it takes is one person to stand up and say, "He's the president," to spark a revolution of belief. For Ibrahim Traoré, that moment had come, and it had changed everything. As the years rolled on, Ibrahim Traoré's work with Rise Together continued to evolve, touching lives across Africa and inspiring countless individuals to take charge of their own futures. Yet, despite his growing influence, Ibrahim never forgot the core values that had driven him since childhood: humility, perseverance, and a deep commitment to serving others. These principles guided every decision he made, ensuring that his efforts remained rooted in authenticity rather than ego. For Ibrahim, leadership wasn't about being at the center of attention. It was about empowering others to step into the spotlight. One of the most remarkable aspects of Ibrahim's journey was how he embraced collaboration as a cornerstone of his mission. He understood that no single person could solve the complex challenges facing communities worldwide. Instead, he believed in the power of collective action, the idea that when people came together, pooling their skills, knowledge, and resources, they could achieve extraordinary things. This philosophy became the driving force behind Rise Together's flagship initiative, the Global Empowerment Forum. The forum was unlike anything Ibrahim had attempted before. It was an annual gathering designed to bring together grassroots leaders, policymakers, entrepreneurs, and innovators from around the world. Unlike traditional conferences dominated by speeches and panels, the forum emphasized hands-on workshops, collaborative brainstorming sessions, and networking opportunities. Participants weren't just passive listeners, they were active contributors, sharing ideas and forming partnerships that could lead to real-world solutions. The first forum took place in Accra, Ghana, and attracted over 500 attendees from more than 30 countries. During one particularly memorable session, a young woman named Fatima stood up to share her story. Hailing from a conflict-ridden region in South Sudan, she had lost her parents to violence and spent years living in refugee camps. Despite these hardships, Fatima refused to give up. She started teaching other children in the camp basic literacy and numeracy skills using whatever materials she could find: scraps of paper, sticks, even stones. Her courage moved everyone in the room, especially Ibrahim, who saw echoes of his own struggle in her determination. After the session, Ibrahim approached Fatima personally, offering mentorship and funding to help scale her efforts. With his support, Fatima launched a mobile education program, equipping volunteers with tablets loaded with educational content. Within months, her initiative reached hundreds of displaced children, giving them hope for a brighter future. Stories like Fatima's reinforced Ibrahim's belief that resilience and creativity could overcome even the toughest obstacles. They also reminded him why he had started this journey, to create opportunities for people like her to shine. While the forum was a resounding success, organizing it wasn't without its challenges. Securing funding was a constant battle, as many sponsors preferred high-profile events over grassroots-focused gatherings. Logistics posed another hurdle, with participants traveling from remote areas and requiring accommodations and transportation. Then there were cultural differences to navigate, ensuring that everyone felt included and respected regardless of background. Yet Ibrahim tackled each challenge with patience and determination, knowing that the impact would be worth the effort. Beyond the forum, Ibrahim continued to innovate, exploring new ways to amplify his message of empowerment. One such project was the launch of a podcast series titled Believe Anyway. Each episode featured interviews with ordinary people doing extraordinary things, from a farmer in Kenya, revolutionizing sustainable agriculture, to a teacher in Nigeria, transforming underperforming schools. Through these stories, Ibrahim aimed to highlight the untapped potential within every individual and community, encouraging listeners to believe in themselves despite adversity. The podcast quickly gained traction, resonating with audiences not just in Africa, but globally. Episodes were downloaded thousands of times, sparking conversations on social media and inspiring listeners to take action in their own lives. One listener wrote to Ibrahim saying, "Your podcast reminded me that I don't need permission to make a difference. I started volunteering at a local shelter because of your words." Messages like these filled Ibrahim with gratitude, reaffirming his belief in the ripple effect of inspiration. Another milestone in Ibrahim's journey came when he was invited to speak at the United Nations General Assembly. Standing on the same stage where world leaders debated global issues, Ibrahim delivered a powerful address titled, "The Power of Belief." He began by recounting his humble beginnings, the laughter, the ridicule, the moments of doubt, and explained how those experiences had shaped his resilience. "People can call you crazy," he said, his voice steady yet passionate. "They can tell you your dreams are too big or your goals are unrealistic. But if you keep moving forward, eventually the world will catch up." His speech earned a standing ovation, with delegates from various nations approaching him afterward to express admiration for his vision. Several governments pledged support for Rise Together, committing funds and resources to expand its reach. Corporate leaders offered partnerships, promising to invest in sustainable development projects aligned with Ibrahim's mission. The UN Secretary General himself praised Ibrahim's work, calling him a beacon of hope in a world desperate for positive change. Despite the accolades, Ibrahim remained focused on the ground-level impact of his initiatives. He knew that speeches and pledges meant little unless they translated into tangible improvements for the people he served. So, he worked tirelessly to ensure that promises turned into action. Schools promised during summits were built, water systems promised during meetings were installed, and training programs promised during negotiations were implemented. Every project bore the mark of accountability, with regular updates shared transparently with stakeholders. Back home in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim's presence continued to inspire transformation. Villagers who once doubted him now looked to him as a role model, proof that persistence could turn dreams into reality. Children who had benefited from his education programs grew up aspiring to follow in his footsteps, dreaming of becoming teachers, doctors, engineers, and leaders. Even skeptics softened their stance, acknowledging the undeniable progress he had brought to the region. "Ibrahim changed our lives," one elder admitted during a community meeting. "He showed us that we are capable of greatness." Yet, amidst all the achievements, Ibrahim faced personal struggles that tested his resolve. Balancing his international commitments with his responsibilities at home was exhausting. There were days when he felt torn between traveling to advocate for global causes and staying put to nurture local projects. The weight of expectations often left him drained, questioning whether he was doing enough. During these moments of vulnerability, he leaned on his support network, friends, family, mentors, and colleagues, who reminded him that it was okay to ask for help, to recharge, Ibrahim frequently returned to the simple joys of village life. He walked barefoot through fields, played football with children, and shared meals with neighbors. These moments grounded him, reminding him of why he had embarked on this journey in the first place. Fame might have taken him far from home, but his heart remained firmly planted in the soil of Burkina Faso. He cherished the connections he had forged with his community, knowing that they were the foundation of everything he had achieved. Time went on. Ibrahim's legacy began to take shape, not as a monument to his individual brilliance, but as a testament to the collective strength of humanity. Rise Together expanded its operations to new regions, adapting its strategies to fit the unique needs of each community. Success stories multiplied, from farmers doubling their yields using innovative techniques to women launching businesses that supported entire families. Each triumph reinforced Ibrahim's conviction that empowerment was contagious. If one person succeeded, it inspired others to try. By the end of a decade, Ibrahim's journey had come full circle. From a boy laughed at for daring to dream, he had grown into a man celebrated for making those dreams a reality. His name appeared in headlines alongside terms like visionary, trailblazer, and changemaker. Yet for Ibrahim, titles mattered less than the lives he had touched. Whether it was a child learning to read, a woman starting a business, or a community gaining access to clean water, these small victories represented the true measure of success. Reflecting on his journey, Ibrahim often thought back to Vin Diesel's unexpected intervention, the moment that had catapulted him onto the global stage. While grateful for the actor's endorsement, Ibrahim knew that true greatness stemmed not from external validation, but from inner belief. "Vin gave me a platform," he once said during an interview, "but the real magic happened because I chose to believe anyway." Those words encapsulated his philosophy, that anyone, regardless of background, could rise above adversity if they held on to their dreams tightly enough. Looking ahead, Ibrahim envisioned a future where Rise Together wasn't just an organization, but a movement, a global network of empowered individuals working collectively to create a better world. He dreamed of a day when no child would go to bed hungry, when every person would. By the time Ibrahim Traoré entered the second decade of his journey, he had become more than just a symbol of resilience. He was a catalyst for change on a global scale. His work with Rise Together had transformed countless lives, but what truly set him apart was his unwavering belief in the power of ordinary people to achieve extraordinary things. For Ibrahim, leadership wasn't about commanding others. It was about creating spaces where individuals could discover their own potential and take ownership of their futures. This philosophy became the heartbeat of everything he did, guiding him through challenges and triumphs alike. One of the most significant developments during this phase of Ibrahim's life was the expansion of Rise Together into new regions beyond Africa. Inspired by the success of his initiatives in Burkina Faso and neighboring countries, Ibrahim decided to take his model of grassroots empowerment to other continents facing similar struggles. He launched pilot projects in South Asia, Latin America, and parts of Eastern Europe, tailoring each program to address the specific needs of local communities. Whether it was building schools in rural Nepal, training women entrepreneurs in Guatemala, or restoring degraded lands in Ukraine, Rise Together adapted its strategies while staying true to its core mission, empowering people to lead themselves out of poverty and despair. The decision to go global wasn't made lightly. Expanding operations required navigating complex cultural, political, and logistical landscapes. Language barriers, differing legal systems, and varying levels of infrastructure posed significant hurdles. Yet, Ibrahim approached these challenges with the same determination that had defined his early years. He assembled diverse teams of experts, educators, engineers, environmentalists, and social workers, who shared his vision and were committed to making it a reality. Together, they worked tirelessly to ensure that every project reflected the values of inclusivity, sustainability, and community-driven development. One of the standout successes of this global expansion came in Bangladesh, where Rise Together partnered with local organizations to combat child labor and improve access to education. In many villages, children as young as 6 were forced to work long hours in factories or fields to support their families. Recognizing that simply building schools wouldn't solve the problem, Ibrahim and his team implemented a holistic approach. They provided financial incentives to parents who sent their kids to school, trained teachers to deliver engaging lessons, and collaborated with local businesses to create alternative income sources for families. Within 2 years, enrollment rates skyrocketed and dropout numbers plummeted, a testament to the power of thoughtful, collaborative solutions. Another milestone occurred in Colombia, where Rise Together focused on reintegrating former combatants into society after decades of civil conflict. Many ex-fighters struggled to find employment due to stigma and lack of skills, leaving them vulnerable to falling back into violence. To address this issue, Ibrahim introduced vocational training programs that taught participants carpentry, farming, and technology-related skills. The initiative also included mental health support, helping individuals heal from trauma and rebuild trust within their communities. By the end of the first year, over 500 former combatants had successfully transitioned into civilian life, contributing positively to their neighborhoods and breaking cycles of violence. Despite these achievements, not everyone supported Ibrahim's efforts. Critics accused him of overextending himself, arguing that spreading resources too thin risked diluting the impact of his work. Others claimed that his focus on grassroots empowerment ignored larger systemic issues like corruption and inequality. While these criticisms stung, Ibrahim didn't shy away from addressing them head-on. During interviews and public appearances, he acknowledged the limitations of his approach but emphasized the importance of starting small. "You can't fix everything at once," he often said, "but if you empower one person, they can inspire 10 more. And those 10 can inspire 100. Change begins with action, no matter how small." To counter skepticism, Ibrahim doubled down on transparency and accountability. Every project under Rise Together underwent rigorous monitoring and evaluation, with data collected and analyzed to measure progress and identify areas for improvement. Reports were published online, allowing donors, stakeholders, and the general public to see exactly how funds were being used. This openness not only silenced critics but also strengthened trust among partners and beneficiaries. It reinforced Ibrahim's reputation as someone who prioritized results over rhetoric. While expanding globally, Ibrahim remained deeply connected to his roots in Burkina Faso. No matter how far he traveled or how busy his schedule became, he always found time to return home. Walking through familiar streets, greeting old friends, and sitting under the shade of the baobab tree brought him immense peace. These visits reminded him of the simplicity and authenticity that had fueled his journey. They also kept him grounded, ensuring that he never lost sight of the people and places that had shaped him. During one such visit, Ibrahim met a teenage boy named Issa, who dreamed of becoming an engineer. Despite excelling in math and science, Issa faced numerous obstacles. His family couldn't afford school fees, and the nearest high school was miles away. Determined to help, Ibrahim arranged for Issa to receive a scholarship and secured transportation for him and other students in the area. A few years later, when Issa graduated top of his class and secured admission to a prestigious university, he credited Ibrahim for believing in him when no one else did. Stories like Issa's reinforced Ibrahim's belief that investing in education was one of the most powerful ways to break cycles of poverty. As his influence grew, so did the demands on Ibrahim's time. Invitations poured in from governments, corporations, and international organizations seeking his advice on tackling issues ranging from climate change to youth unemployment. Universities offered honorary degrees, and nonprofits begged him to join their boards. While flattered, Ibrahim carefully selected which opportunities to pursue, ensuring that his commitments aligned with his values and priorities. He knew that saying yes to everything would spread him too thin, compromising the quality of his work. Instead, he chose engagements that allowed him to amplify his message without losing focus on the ground-level impact. One such opportunity arose when Ibrahim was invited to co-author a book titled From Laughter to Leadership. Written alongside a renowned journalist, the memoir chronicled his journey from a ridiculed dreamer to a celebrated changemaker. Each chapter highlighted key lessons learned along the way: how to persevere in the face of doubt, how to turn adversity into opportunity, and how to inspire others to believe in themselves. The book became an instant bestseller, resonating with readers around the world. Teachers assigned it in classrooms, activists carried it to rallies, and entrepreneurs quoted it in pitches. For many, it served as both a source of inspiration and a practical guide to pursuing their dreams. Beyond writing, Ibrahim embraced technology as a tool for scaling his impact. Leveraging social media platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, he shared daily updates about his projects, posted motivational messages, and engaged directly with followers. His posts often went viral, sparking conversations about topics like education reform, climate justice, and gender equality. One video in which he recounted how Vin Diesel's endorsement had changed his life garnered millions of views and inspired hashtags like Believe Anyway and Dream Big Live Bold. These digital campaigns turned Rise Together into a household name, attracting younger audiences eager to contribute to meaningful causes. Yet, amidst all the growth and recognition, Ibrahim remained acutely aware of the responsibility that came with his position. Fame, he realized, was a double-edged sword. It brought visibility and resources, but also scrutiny and pressure. There were days when the weight of expectations felt overwhelming, leaving him questioning whether he was doing enough. On those days, he turned to mentors, friends, and family for guidance, reminding himself that even the strongest leaders needed support. He also practiced self-care, carving out time for reflection, meditation, and hobbies that brought him joy. Perhaps the most profound shift during this phase of Ibrahim's journey was his evolving definition of success. Early on, he had measured success by tangible outcomes: schools built, businesses launched, lives improved. But as he matured, he began to see success in broader terms. It wasn't just about numbers or milestones. It was about fostering a culture of resilience, creativity, and collaboration. Success meant inspiring others to believe in themselves, equipping them with tools to overcome challenges, and trusting them to carry the torch forward. This perspective crystallized during a visit to a remote village in Ethiopia, where Rise Together had recently completed a clean water project. As Ibrahim walked through the community, he noticed something remarkable. Villagers weren't just using the new wells, they were maintaining them, organizing committees to ensure their longevity. Children played freely, knowing they no longer had to walk hours to fetch water. Women gathered in groups discussing plans to start cooperative gardens. Seeing this sense of agency and ownership filled Ibrahim with pride. As Ibrahim Traoré entered the final chapter of his extraordinary journey, he found himself reflecting on the lessons he had learned and the lives he had touched. Decades had passed since the day Vin Diesel stood up at that global leadership summit and declared, "He's the president," a moment that had changed everything. Yet for Ibrahim, the title of president was never about power or authority. It was about responsibility. It was a reminder that true leadership meant serving others, lifting them up, and leaving behind a legacy that would outlast any individual. By now, Rise Together had grown into a global phenomenon, with chapters operating in over 60 countries. The organization's impact was undeniable. Millions of children were attending school. Thousands of businesses had been launched by aspiring entrepreneurs, and countless ecosystems restored through sustainable practices. But what truly set Rise Together apart was its spirit of collaboration. It wasn't just an organization, it was a movement, driven by ordinary people who believed they could create extraordinary change. This collective energy was something Ibrahim cherished deeply, knowing that it represented the culmination of his life's work. One of the most poignant moments during this phase of his journey came when Ibrahim returned to Burkina Faso for the opening of a new university named after him, the Ibrahim Traoré Institute of Leadership and Empowerment. Built on land donated by the government, The institute aimed to nurture the next generation of changemakers, offering programs in education, entrepreneurship, environmental science, and community development. As Ibrahim stood before a crowd of students, faculty, and dignitaries, he felt a mix of emotions: pride, gratitude, and humility. In his speech, he spoke candidly about his own struggles and triumphs, urging the young audience to embrace their potential. "You don't need permission to lead," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "You don't need titles or recognition. All you need is belief in yourself, in your community, and in the possibility of a better tomorrow." His words resonated deeply, inspiring applause that echoed across the campus. For many students, this was more than just a ceremony. It was a call to action, a reminder that they too could shape the future. The establishment of the institute marked a turning point for Ibrahim. While he continued to oversee Rise Together, he began transitioning into a mentorship role, focusing on guiding younger leaders who shared his vision. He understood that no one person could carry the torch forever, and it was time to pass the baton to those who would take the mission forward. Among these emerging leaders was Amina, the woman from Mali whose handmade goods business had flourished, thanks to Ibrahim's support years earlier. Now a seasoned entrepreneur, she led Rise Together's West Africa division, mentoring hundreds of women entrepreneurs and spearheading innovative projects aimed at economic empowerment. Another key figure was Kwame, the young man from Ghana whom Ibrahim had met during his early travels. Once unsure of his path, Kwame had gone on to become an engineer specializing in renewable energy solutions. Under his leadership, Rise Together launched several solar-powered initiatives across rural communities, bringing light and opportunity to areas once shrouded in darkness. These individuals, and countless others like them, represented the ripple effect of Ibrahim's efforts, proving that investing in people yielded exponential returns. Despite stepping back from day-to-day operations, Ibrahim remained actively involved in advocacy and storytelling. He traveled extensively, delivering keynote speeches at conferences, universities, and corporate events. Each talk was infused with personal anecdotes, humor, and wisdom, making complex issues accessible and relatable. Whether addressing climate change, education inequality, or youth unemployment, Ibrahim always emphasized the importance of grassroots action. "Change doesn't start in boardrooms or parliaments," he often said. "It starts in villages, neighborhoods, and classrooms. It starts with you." In addition to speaking engagements, Ibrahim collaborated with filmmakers to produce a documentary chronicling his journey. Titled Believe Anyway, the film captured both the highs and lows of his life, from the ridicule he faced as a young man to the global recognition he achieved as a leader. Interspersed with interviews from beneficiaries of Rise Together and commentary from experts, the documentary painted a vivid picture of resilience and determination. When it premiered at a prestigious international film festival, it received standing ovations and critical acclaim, further cementing Ibrahim's status as a symbol of hope. As his public appearances became less frequent, Ibrahim focused on nurturing quieter, more intimate connections. He spent long hours mentoring young activists, listening to their ideas, and offering guidance based on his experiences. He also reconnected with old friends and family members, cherishing moments of laughter and reflection. Sitting under the baobab tree in his village, he often thought about how far he had come, not just geographically but emotionally and spiritually. Fame hadn't changed him. It had simply given him a platform to amplify the voices of others. Yet, Ibrahim knew that his journey wasn't entirely complete. There were still challenges to address, injustices to confront, and dreams to pursue. Climate change loomed large, threatening the livelihoods of millions. Inequality persisted, leaving marginalized communities struggling for basic rights, and political instability in various parts of the world posed risks to peace and progress. These realities weighed heavily on Ibrahim, but they also fueled his resolve. He believed that every problem had a solution, and every obstacle presented an opportunity for innovation. To tackle these pressing issues, Ibrahim launched a final initiative called the Legacy Project. Designed as a blueprint for sustainable development, the project brought together leaders from diverse fields, scientists, policymakers, artists, and activists, to collaborate on long-term strategies. The goal was simple, yet ambitious: to create a roadmap for a better world, one where everyone had access to education, healthcare, clean water, and economic opportunities. Though Ibrahim wouldn't live to see the full implementation of the project, he trusted that future generations would carry the torch. In his later years, Ibrahim slowed down physically, but remained mentally sharp and spiritually grounded. He spent more time writing, documenting his thoughts and reflections in journals that he hoped would inspire others long after he was gone. One recurring theme in his writings was the idea of interconnectedness, the notion that humanity's greatest strength lay in its ability to unite despite differences. "We are all threads in the same tapestry," he wrote. "When we weave our stories together, we create something beautiful and enduring." Ibrahim's health eventually declined, but even in his final days, he radiated positivity and purpose. Surrounded by loved ones, he shared memories of his childhood, his travels, and the people who had shaped his journey. He expressed gratitude for the laughter, the tears, the victories, and the setbacks, knowing that each had played a role in shaping him into the person he became. On the morning of his passing, he whispered one last message to those gathered around him: "Keep believing, keep rising. Together, we can do anything." When news of Ibrahim's death spread, tributes poured in from around the world. World leaders praised his vision and courage, while ordinary citizens shared stories of how he had inspired them to dream bigger and act bolder. Social media lit up with hashtags like "Thank you, Ibrahim" and "Legacy of Hope," celebrating a life dedicated to service and empowerment. In Burkina Faso, thousands gathered in the streets, singing songs and sharing meals in honor of the man who had transformed their nation. Today, Ibrahim Traoré is remembered not just as a visionary leader, but as a beacon of resilience and compassion. His story serves as a testament to the power of belief. The belief that even in the face of ridicule and adversity, dreams can become reality. From the boy laughed at for daring to dream to the man celebrated for making those dreams come true, Ibrahim proved that greatness isn't reserved for the privileged few. It belongs to anyone willing to persevere, to rise above challenges, and to believe anyway. And so the revolution of hope that began with a single voice continues to echo across continents, carried forward by the countless lives Ibrahim touched. Through Rise Together, the Legacy Project, and the hearts of those inspired by his example, his spirit endures, a reminder that change begins with action, and that even the smallest spark can ignite a fire bright enough to light the world.